Talking today to Chris Taggart of OpenCorporates. Chris, what is OpenCorporates?
OpenCorporates is the largest openly licensed database of companies in the world. We've got 43 million different companies in there in 50 different jurisdictions, and data that relates to them, public data that relates to them, from trademark information to official filings to health and safety violations, things like that.
And since company registration organisations exist in most countries, what was the logic for setting up this global database?
Well, one of the problems is that, as a former journalist, when you're that thing of let me search for a company, that there's a lot of friction involved in that. You have to find the register, but actually even once you found that register, then you need to understand how to do that. But then what if you're searching for something across multiple jurisdictions? What if you're searching for all the Deloittes, for example, you're not quite sure what country it's in?
Yeah.
What if you're searching for companies in the States where you have no US companies, you just have companies that are registered by the States? Then to be able to do that in one search, in one place, is an incredibly powerful experience. Also, many of those often don't have good searches. You have to know exactly the name of the company you're searching for in order to be able to do that. You can't search for previous names, for example. So all of this, just by pulling this together in one place, it saves journalists a huge amount of time, saves anti-corruption investigators a huge amount of time, saves people who are looking to see if a company that they're about to do business with really exists a huge amount of time, but also allows you to then add other data that's from other sources to that as well.
And that other data would consist of what kinds of things, so people have some idea that they're getting something more than simply company name and address, as it were?
Well, something like in the UK, for example, when a company has a meeting with creditors, that is, the creditors say, one of them says, look, we're not being paid, we want to wind the company up. Where does that first appear? That doesn't appear on Companies House, the official register. That appears in the London Gazette. So we take that London Gazette notice and we match that to the company, and we do that every single night, so that you can actually see, have early warning of that. We've got things like health and safety notices that's been put in there. We've got trademark information. We've got which are the suppliers to government, and all of that sort of thing. In the US, we've got things like the FDIC, the banking regulators, which ones of those are registered with those. And again, that's a source for additional information. Often a company might just have a lawyer's address as an additional, as the official address, but then they'll give the real address for their registration with an official registry, for example, with like the SEC, or with the Charity Commission or other things, this sort of information that we're collecting together. But by putting that together, it's enormously, it reduces the amount of work that journalists spend. And journalists these days have less and less time in order to be able to research stories. And if you've got to do 2 hours of legwork before you even start the story, then you probably won't do it.
And besides journalists, who would be the users of this database?
Well, essentially what we've got with OpenCorporates is we've got a platform. I can tell you who's already using it. We have tax offices that use it to search for countries in other companies. We have big auditors that use it for their corporate fraud departments.
Yeah. The due diligence investigation.
We have credit reference agencies that use it. We have NGOs that use it. We have other companies that do it to look at the information on themselves. They look themselves up, or they look for information on their competitors. If you want to know.
So anybody can look at the information and check what is given is correct.
If I'm doing business with this company, it matters to me if there's suddenly a meeting with the creditors. Now let's say that I'm a creditor to them, I'll want to know that. But what if they are a supplier to me and they're about to go bust? What if I'm it matters another way. What if I'm an employee? For example, these things matter to all sorts of people, because we live in a corporate world now, and this basic understanding of what companies are and how they and what information relates to them is critical for all of us.
And what's the business model? How are you paying for this massive database?
the data is there for anyone to use. The website is free. There's no charge for you using it. It's free for anyone to use, and it's free to people even to use commercially. But what we say is that because we've cleaned up this data, because we've matched data to it, we've normalized it, we've said that this data relates to this, then we automatically acquire what's known as database rights because of that. And to the extent that we have those database rights, we say those rights are made available under an attribution share alike basis. Now, that sounds all kind of complicated, but what it means is that if you use that data, what you make with that data, whether it's another database, or a graph or a report,
or another service of some kind,
or another service, then you need to make that available under the same. You need to attribute it. You need to say where you got it from, and you need to make that available under the same share alike basis. And for most people that's fine, but for proprietary companies who want to import it into their proprietary database, then they probably won't want to do that. But then they pay us for removing those restrictions. So what you have, just like the open source software world, where dual licenses are quite common, you have a system where there's an incentive to either contribute back to the community by publishing more open data, or to contribute back to the community financially. So you're paying a penalty for keeping things private rather than a penalty for opening things up.
And technically, how does this work? Because you say you're collecting on a daily basis, certain kinds of data.
We get data from many different sources, from some countries, UK, New Zealand, some US states. We get the data direct from them as data. Other places we know what's known as screen scrape, where we send a program to look at a web page and try to figure out what that web page means. Here's a headline, so that means that's probably the name of the company, that sort of type of thing. And we do that for literally hundreds of thousands of pages every day. And then we pull it together using algorithms, cleaning it up, adding value, and make it usable for people, so that all they need to do is to go to the website, type a name of a company, and suddenly it's all there for them.
So how many countries have you got covered at the moment?
We've got 50 jurisdictions, and the jurisdiction is a place that issues companies. So in the US, for example, that's each state issues companies. We've got about 25 US states. So altogether, in terms of the different countries, we've got 20 plus countries or so.
Okay.
We should be probably up to about 30 or 40 by the end of the year.
And is that largely developed economies, or is that also
It's mostly developed economies, because somewhere, for example, like I think Ghana probably doesn't have an online company register. But we're starting to work with the World Bank to help improve access to company data around the world.
And you're doing work in Colombia on this basis?
So we with Colombia, we're trying to get the company register because we're working with the World Bank on a thing called open contracting. And there's a lot of there's lots of contracts available, public the contracts that the government has with other entities, and so we'd like to match that as part of this program to the companies that it relates to. So that's why we're concentrating on doing stuff in Colombia. But we've got things like Greenland. I had an email 2-3 weeks ago from someone saying, would you like some help doing Mongolia? It's those sorts of things. We've had huge amounts of help from the open data community, and that's one of the benefits of being in the open, in that the community will benefit and has an incentive to help contribute back to it.
Chris, thanks for talking to me today.
Thanks.